What's up? How y'all doing? It's Jared. It's a Benchmade 87. And the pivot of this thing is not set up like a lot of other channel-style constructed Balisongs that run on bearings. Because there's been a few of them that have come out recently. This is a Max Ace Pelican. And if you're familiar with the way that this thing is actually made, you have to install a live blade. You have to install the live blade because this one in particular comes with a trainer. So you may have seen the way that this is set up. I'm going to pull this blade out really quick just to give you a kind of a little demonstration, actually show you how this thing is set up. So I'll take my pivot screw out. If I can actually get the right size of Torx bit. This is going to be a Torx 9 here. And I'm sorry I'm not in my normal filming spot. I'm actually in the process of moving and my table is completely disassembled, but I still wanted to make this video. So we'll pull that screw out, push my little pivot out. You can see that actually coming out the back there. Pull my pivot out and pull the whole knife off. And now this is the way that most channel constructed, Balis that run on pivots are set up, right? You've got the channel actually milled out here with the little races on either side. You can see that little steel washer right there on the inside of the handle. It's the same thing with this here. It just runs up against, in between the titanium and those actual bearings themselves to give you, that surface bearing. So you're not actually running on anything crazy, right? That's not the case, or running actually on the titanium. So you're not running the bearings themselves directly on the titanium, right? If I can finish an actual thought. And so I'm going to pull out my Torx 10s here. Another one. Close this knife up, set her down. Let's see, stick one on either side here. So I've got it Loctited, so it'll be a little bit hard to break off at first, break that tension at first. So pull this pivot out, right? And one thing that you'll notice right off the bat is when that handle comes off, there's a milled track that goes all the way through, right? But this pivot, if I pull this bottom pivot off, check out the bottom pivot there, right? It's fat, it's massive. And there's your actual race, your little bearing race. And it's more of an actual bearing race itself, right? You see the way that this handle is set up. Let me, if I can actually pull the bearing off here. There's less bearings, right? But the handle itself it's running on the hardware itself because the hardware is going actually through the handle. You can see that there, that bolt actually goes all the way through this handle. You can see it coming into the track of the actual inside of the knife there. And so that's actually what's giving you your tension, right? That's actually what's giving you the compressive tension around the actual blade, right? Get that bearing off of there. So when I tighten this pivot down, when I actually squeeze this pivot down, it's not squeezing the titanium together, right? Because when I tighten this pivot down, it's just squeezing that titanium around the knife and onto the blade. This is actually squeezing this is actually squeezing that pivot around the blade itself, or around the actual blade and the washers itself. It's leaving the titanium frame out of the equation. It's just connecting only on one side, right? There's actually only connection to that pivot mechanism on the one side, right? And so it's milled out on the other side here. And so it's definitely an interesting design, you know what I mean? It's a very kind of intuitive design here going on in this 87 pivot. It's not set up like the majority of, other channel constructed Balisong knives that are all coming out onto the market nowadays. I think it just deserves a little bit more credit. And it's definitely a pain to reassemble though, right? So what I'm going to do is stick my handle back together here, put my bearings in there. Well, no, I'll stick my race on top. Stick my bearing race on top. If I can actually get it to sit on top of the damn bearings there, right? Well, I'll line it up in a second. Stick everything in. Oh wait, I'm just being stupid. This is actually really neat as well, right? You can see on the inside of the handle here, there's actually a it's milled out track. There's a milled out track for this bearing race. So that bearing race, you see, I couldn't fit it in the handle. I was trying to fit it in with the bearings, and I couldn't fit it in there. And it's because it doesn't fit. It's actually milled out to go on the interior of that handle there, which is a really cool thing. So now I'm going to take my extra little bearing, stick it back on the bottom of my handle here, and now I can put this handle back into the knife. Or the blade back into the handle, I guess. Finagle that thing in there. Like that. Set that up. Take my little pivot with the bearing race on it. Make sure that race is set up in the right direction. Drop it in. Put my screw back on. You guys see what I just did? Look what I just did. Look at it. I put the handle on backwards. Oh, sometimes. Look at that. It looks funny, don't it? I can't believe I just did that. Alright, well. Let's actually pull this thing back apart. Hold on. Yeah. Back on the right handle there. It is interesting to note that you can just stick this handle on backwards, but it doesn't quite operate the same way as that Brous Blades. The last Brous Blades B3, watched the video on that one. If I stuck the handle on that thing backwards and didn't even notice for like 2 days until somebody mentioned it in the comments. That's a Benchmade 87. It's just an interesting design. You know, it's not set up like a lot of other Bally's, but looking at it from the outside here, you know, there's nothing that kind of screams it. There's nothing that you're really going to notice that this thing is set up any different from any other Bally's. So, that's it. Y'all have a good one.